Hello everyone. So the Grand Fondo has finally arrived and today is Wednesday and the Fondo is 3 days away. So it's time to get ready and give you some tips on how to prepare for the event. So before we talk about the actual course and what to expect, I'm going to talk to you about the day prior, and we can even take it a few days before that. So, like I said, today's the Wednesday, and this is arriving to you with still 3 more days to prepare. So, in terms of how to prepare for this event, I think the weather is going to be very fair and mild, so you won't be expecting high heat. We can actually confirm that very quickly, but yeah, we're looking at 23 degrees maximum, so beautiful sunny day. Usually on the day of, it's quite cold in the mornings, so I would encourage you to wear something on you that you can just toss on the side. Usually there will be people to collect that. And if you have somebody escorting you, perhaps just give it to them before you begin. Passive heating is your best friend at the start of that event because you're dealing with thousands of people at the start line. So instead of sacrificing your location at the starting point, you want to find a good location and just have warm clothes to keep you warm, than having to spare that warm up prior to the race start. So that's a good strategy to go with, in my opinion. I've seen that multiple times when people try to squeeze in a warm up and they miss their place at the start, and then they really have to fight through a large number of people in order to get a good position, and they waste a lot of energy through that process. So I would highly encourage you to just wear something warm that you don't really care too much about, and then just toss it before you begin. And again, make sure that you have somebody to either pick it up and just confirm. Usually they do have people that pick up that stuff and donate it. So a few days before, you want to start to think about what you're going to be eating and preparing for this event. Like I said, it's not going to be super warm, so hydration is probably going to be okay. You don't have to load up on too much fluids beforehand, as you would, for example, the Penticton Grand Fondo or something like that. So I would encourage you to still maintain a good hydration strategy before the race, and carrying a water bottle with you anywhere you go between now and the event. Now, in terms of fueling, I would say approximately 48 hours before the event itself, you want to start thinking about how much calories you're going to be bringing into your body. I'm not a big fan of making big changes to your diet before a big event, but you do want to potentially add a bit more carbohydrates to your diet if you haven't done so already. And that could be, adding an extra scoop of rice, or maybe another, fork full of pasta, but nothing too big. You don't want to go too big and just start eating tons and tons of carbs, because the problem with carbohydrate loading is that you're also going to bring in a lot of fluids. So you're going to be carrying all that weight, unnecessary weight, for the event. Last year, there were many issues with the feeding station, so being self-reliant on that course is probably a good idea. The feeding station around Squamish is usually packed, so depending on when you arrive to it, if you're somewhere in the middle of the pack, you're going to be struggling to get access to food and water. So I would encourage you to potentially be more self-reliant for this event, and we'll talk about that in a second. That's as far as fueling. As far as the day prior to the event, I have specific guidelines that I give my athletes that include some leg openers on the day before. So we're looking at the Friday of September 8th, and I would encourage you to try and get that in earlier in the day, because the start time for this event is earlier on the next day. So you want to have as much time to really recover and make sure everything is dialed in before you go to the event. So if you do this opener session after work, it's going to give you a very short window to actually recover. And if anything goes wrong with the bike or something, then you just don't have that time to sort it out. So I would really encourage you to try and get it in first thing in the morning, and then go on with your day. Go pick up your stuff from the expo. Say hello to us at the Dark Horse setup at the Cycle Collective booth right next to the last drop booth. So really looking forward to seeing you there. Now, As far as the leg opener session, very simple. You can actually cut it down to about an hour. You don't have to go for 2 hours. But what it is essentially is just a very easy warm up. Let your body kind of actively warm up. You don't have to ride hard or anything before the hard efforts. 20 minutes should be enough. Here I plugged a bit longer just to give this specific athlete a bit more time to add some volume in, but you can do 20 minutes and that's enough. Then you go into 3 45-second efforts, and these are full blast. So you just go as deep as you can for 45 seconds, and then you recover for about 3 minutes. So again, 45 seconds is a long time. It's not a 10-second sprint. So make sure that you are trying to be as consistent as possible for those 45 seconds instead of trying to go as hard as you can for 10 seconds and then trying to just, maintain that effort for as long as possible. You just want to go 45 seconds, pretty hard gear, maybe even choose a climb that takes you about a minute to climb on, or maybe more, and just do 45 seconds on that, and try to just maintain that pace. So it's not a sprint, it's just a hard effort. So as hard as you can go for 45 seconds. So whatever that may be for you, just try to make sure that you don't blow yourself up on the first 10 seconds. Then 3 minutes to recover, repeat that 2 more times and you're good. Then recover for an additional 3 minutes and then jump onto a 10-minute kind of a sweet spot threshold pace. So what that should feel like is relatively manageable for the first 3 minutes. And then after 3 minutes, you're going to feel like the world is kind of locking onto you and pushing you down. But then at some point, you should feel like it's completely manageable. And that should happen as you get closer to the 10th minute. If it doesn't happen and you still feel like a bit uncomfortable, then you want to maybe extend it for an extra minute or two. And that's essentially the opener session. That's the goal of the session, is to get to a point where you're feeling like you're on autopilot. So if you got to that point, shut her down, do a bit of a cool down, and complete it to, again, depending on how long you want to go for, an hour, 2 hours, stuff like that. So that's pretty much in terms of the opener session. Then, like I said, on the day of the event, you're probably not going to have that much time to do a proper warm-up. So passive heating is your best bet. But if you've done this opener session the day before, you should pretty much be fine for the start of this event. Now, it's a rolling start, so they're going to control the speed from Stanley Park out to almost out to Taylor Way. So in terms of the what to expect on the day of, starting position is very important. If you know roughly what time you're gonna, if you have an idea of what time you're aiming for, try again to be in the right corral, but try to be at the front of that corral. So there's going to be a lot of people that are maybe less familiar with the course, and some of them are maybe not so familiar with just riding in a big group. Now, usually the start of this race, like I said, it's not super chaotic because it is a controlled start, but let's try to break it down from what to expect if you're really racing this thing and trying to get the best possible time. And then we'll talk a bit about how to just get a good time, but perhaps you're not looking to race anybody and just going to stay within your limits. So if you are planning to do the St. Regis, or you're just trying to get a really good result, this race usually doesn't really open up until past the Alice Lake climb. So when everybody talks about the climbs past Squamish, past Alice Lake, we're talking about this big climb. So Squamish is right here. You can see on the map here, this is Squamish, and as we head out of Squamish, we get into the Alice Lake area. We can probably even zoom in on that. So here we can see Alice Lake just around this section right here, and you're already kind of approaching the climb. So this is the beginning of the climb. Alice Lake will be on your right-hand side, and then from that point, you're starting to accumulate the most amount of ascent. Now, the race does not start usually well past Alice Lake. So around marker 90, you should expect to have quite a large group, the main peloton riding together. Now, this climb, to those of you who have enough fitness to ride past it with the main group, you should expect to see fireworks happening around the 90K mark. This area is very up and down. I mean, yes, you're accumulating elevation, but it's constantly just up, down, up, down, up, down, and it's a very, very aggressive section. But if you make it to this point, you are basically in it till the end. So the pack will split, and you will likely see breakaways happening. And if you're feeling very strong, this is where you should keep your eyes out for big moves to happen. But if you're feeling okay and you're well hidden in the pack should carry you through all the way to the finish. As far as best places to attack, I would say, depending on how good you feel, you want to wait till a marker somewhere around 110 or maybe even 115 to try and avoid making it to the finish line in a sprint. So unless you're looking to do that, but if you're not, which most people are not, you want to try and make your move around the 111 or the 115K mark. So that's what I've seen in most events, most cases. The race only opens up at the 90K mark, and the winning moves usually happen around the 110 to 115 kilometers. So I'll bear all that in mind. Usually people think that Taylor Way is the biggest point where the race really splits up, but it doesn't. Last year, I recall Red Truck put on a big effort at the beginning in Taylor Way, and yes, they caused a big stir inside the peloton. But usually these things don't happen. And since they already got multiple wins from this year, I don't know if they'll be as hungry as they were in previous years. So this is very difficult to guess, but from most years that I've seen this race, again, it won't open up till the 90K mark. Now, if you are racing this event self-sufficient and are not expecting to race with the top teams, but still looking to get a good experience and a good time, then you want to consider carrying enough water to carry you through this entire event. Now, for people who are looking to do this in kind of the 5-hour range, perhaps just getting water is a good idea, or have somebody to give you water around the Squamish area is a good idea, or even past Squamish. Again, around past the 90K mark is preferable, because then it leaves you with a final hour with water, and you're not having to fight people for position around the fueling station at the 70K mark. So I would say if you are planning to be self-sufficient, starting with perhaps 3 bottles is a good idea, and having one in your jersey is wise. So if you do that, you should be able to last through the first 90 kilometers with no problem, kind of looking at about a bottle an hour, and covering around kind of a 30 kilometer an hour average, or 30 kilometers per hour in terms of distance. So you should be fine if you have 3 bottles. That should carry you through nicely. Now, again, you start in the morning, it's very cool. You're not going to be sweating a ton, so you should be fine in terms of hydration. Electrolytes, I always encourage to carry at least one with various mixes, whatever you prefer. If it has more sugar, less sugar, it's really up to you. And then as far as fueling, you want to have, at least a bar, maybe something that has around 250 kilocalories. That should be plenty. And if you can eat that every hour, you should be able to make it to the finish no problem. Another thing that can help you increase your caloric intake is having stuff in your liquid that has calories in it, some carbohydrates. That will be very useful. And again, having a couple of gels that you kind of maintain for the last push after the 90K mark to just give you that extra boost before you make it to the finish. Yeah, so that's pretty much as far as fueling strategy. As far as energy management, again, the first 2/3 of this event are not that difficult. So you can see how Furry Creek and all the climbs before that, Britannia Beach and all that, they're not very big. So you're going to cruise through those relatively easily just with the packs that you have with you. You're going to be surrounded by people at all times. So you're not going to be having too many sections where you're just pushing against the wind by yourself. It's not going to happen. So use those big packs to really carry that momentum through the climbs. And again, if you're looking to just get a good result and a good experience, the point where you want to really, really make sure that you're not pushing over your limit and just sticking to your values and your comfort zone is the climb out of the house. Like, this is the point where a lot of people get it wrong, and they see that climb. There's a lot of kind of commotion around the feeding stations and stuff like that. And if you have somebody waiting for you up the road with extra liquid, don't worry about that climb. Just ride it gently, as if you're climbing to the first lookout on Cypress, and just maintain your own pace. The lightest gear you have, just cruise up it. It's really worth losing a couple of minutes on this climb and not burning yourself out and losing a lot of time on the way past that. Because once you go up the climb, the race isn't over. It's just getting started. This climb opens you up to the final third of the race. And this section, even though it seems very gradual, you're constantly climbing. And like I said, it's up and down, up and down, up and down. So energy management is key, and just making sure you don't blow your engine off on this big climb. So don't follow anybody that might be a little bit faster than you. Try to really settle into your own pace and just be conservative. So that's pretty much it. I think this race is actually, from most of the events that we have on the calendar, is the least complicated in terms of technicality. So if you've done other events like the Victoria Fondo, the Valley Fondo, or Penticton, and you felt good, this should not be super challenging. You have, again, lots of people to ride with. You're never alone. The weather is going to be great, so it should be really an excellent experience. And the hard parts that we've marked already, just ride within your limits and make sure that you're enjoying that experience, and that should carry you through to the finish very well, and you'll probably get a very good result as well. So if you have any specific questions, please feel free to reach out. I'll do my best to try and answer everything before the event. I will be at the expo from around 4 p.m. till 8 till they close. So please come, say hi, ask any questions you have. We're going to do some demos of the physiological assessments that we do at KITS, and also pretty soon probably do it at Squamish as well. So please come by, say hello, and I'm looking forward to seeing you there. Best of luck.